afternoon. Today we have the honor and privilege of having Dr. Reetu Jaiswal with us. Dr. Reetu Jaiswal will talk about words beget power or power begets word. Reetu Jaiswal is an assistant professor at the Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi. Her areas of interest include social and political philosophy, gender studies, and media studies. She has various publications and presentations in several national and international forums. Among several other conferences which she organized, she was also the convener of the first ever All India Philosophy Graduates Conference. She is currently supervising 4 Ph.D. theses, 1 post-doctoral work, and has supervised 4 MPhil dissertations in the field of gender studies. She has been awarded the Gandhi Award from Gandhi Bhawan, University of Delhi. She is also mentoring the Gender Champion Committee of the department for the last 4 years. She is also a visiting faculty in IIM Rohtak. You're welcome, Dr. Reetu Jaiswal. You have up to 3 hours for the session, but you can finish it early too if you want to. So over to you, ma'am. You can conduct this session however you like to.
Okay, thank you so much. I was informed that this is for 2 hours. So it seems that it is for 3 hours. And I am not sure whether I'll be able to do justice with the time. So, but still, this, topic is very much very much near to my heart. So I guess discussions over the topic will be happening here, and you people will like the lecture and would like to share your opinion. Okay, so we can have more interactions rather than the monological dialogue. Okay, so so basically I have to say something on dialogue but in a monological way, so let's not do it. And I guess the purpose of being here on this platform will be defeated if we don't interact with each other. So first of all, I would like to thank you and In Dialogue for inviting me once again. And I feel very near to the foundation since I have also been a part of this organization. I feel like being a member of this organization since a long time. So hello everyone, even though I'm not aware of who are the participants, but I would like to say that at least I guess when we talk about dialogue, the question of gender becomes very important. And since gender studies is one of my specialization, so I have placed my lecture in that domain. So I would like to present my screen, okay, since I have a PPT presentation here. So yeah, please enable screen sharing.
I did now. You can do it now.
Okay, thank you. So is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is first of all, before I start this dialogue on this topic, words beget power or power begets words, I would like to say a few things here. That why did I choose this topic and why I think that this topic is very important to be discussed in at a platform like this. Because when we are talking about having a dialogue, and if we are stopping someone or curtailing someone's freedom to having a dialogue because of some hierarchical power relations under which we are living, then I guess this is a some sort of injustice. And very recently we have seen that how this whole case of Rehana has raised this point that if a woman is saying something, whether it is in favor of the government or against the government, or in favor of one country or against one country or whatever, that is frowned upon, and And I don't have issues with people contesting a woman's views and criticizing a woman's views, but I have an issue when a woman is criticized not on the basis of whatever opinion she has expressed, but on the basis of her sexual identity. So it's like, when a woman is saying something which has hurt the feeling of the mob or the majority or someone, they will immediately start threatening her in the name of raping her, or saying, abusing her in terms of her sexual identity and all, so to express that how vulnerable a woman is in this patriarchal society. So I guess these kind of incidences are very important to be discussed on such a platform, where we'll have to decide and we'll have to figure out like what could be a way out of dealing such kind of of dealing with such kind of problems, where whether we refer to Gurmeet Kaur, or whether we refer to Rihanna, or whether we refer to any other woman who is going against the stream and trying to raise her voice, then she is stopped, not because she is presenting a mistaken argument, or some argument which is not acceptable to the other part of the debaters, but because she is a woman, and how dare she say some few things which are not likable to the majority. So that is the whole idea behind writing this paper. And when I say words beget power, so what I want to say is that generally when we are trying to engage in a dialogue, we want to say that if I can say something, it must be yielding some kind of power. Okay, I must have some power in the sense that my words are going to influence you, and my words do have some meaning, and you are not just listening to me just for the sake of listening to me and ignoring me. So my words, until or unless it has some kind of influence or acceptance or agency or autonomy, it won't have any influence on the society, or at least I won't consider my words to be influential enough. So when we say that words beget power, it means that words do have that capacity to make you powerful in any kind of communication. And then the other half of this article says that power begets words. So it seems as if, on the one hand, in the ideal society where I think that my words, if they are making any sense, and if they are expressing my experiences, my lived experiences, and my point of views, they must be yielding some power, and they must be transferring some power from my point of view to the other's point of view. But that happens only, it seems as if that is going to happen only in ideal world, because because of the second part of this title, that power begets words, that whoever is powerful, whoever is in a powerful position, can only create words and can only decide which kind of and what kind of words could be uttered and what kind of words cannot be uttered. So before we start this whole discussion, I would like to ask you people, like, do you agree that this is the case, or this whole title in itself is mistaken? So I would like to ask or listen to your views. So if that is allowed, I guess this could be interactive. So please, here so many experienced people are here. I would also like to enhance my knowledge by having this interaction with you. So does anyone want to share their opinion on the title itself?
Hello, ma'am. This is Muhammad Balik from Hyderabad.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm a postgraduate from Manipal University. I would just like to comment on your title of the program here today.
Mhm.
I think it's a very apt and very powerful title here. I say that because power power begets words, or words beget power. I think that could be seen in the context of what's happening right now in the Indian politics, and uh, how somebody who's in power is using his power to shut down every dissenting voice right now.
Mm.
And I can also say or support that from whatever happened with Munawar Faruqi in the recent times.
Okay. So basically, like, this is, although the my paper is primarily going to be engaging with the gendered aspect of it, but I don't deny that there are other aspects of this thing as well. So even though, you can say that hierarchy which exists in the sense of caste discrimination or class discrimination, or political discrimination, social discrimination, all these kind of aspects could be applied on this title itself, but I will be limiting my conversation to the aspect of gender only. So, and I apologize for that, because obviously I thought that it will be a limited section, and I cannot take all the all the perspectives here. So I'm just focusing on the gendered aspect. Although you are welcome to share your own opinion if you have any from other perspectives as well, because that is going to enhance this whole work. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your opinion. And yeah.
Ritu ma'am, good afternoon. This is Sabiha More from Teachers Training College.
Okay.
We train teachers. When you say that your presentation is especially focused on gender, I agree with you that I don't know about the other societies, because I had a very limited chance to live in other than Indian boundaries. But words that are used for female, words that are used for females in this country are so powerful that it strikes the psyche of people like me who are very empowered, and it just keeps on lingering on your mind for, if I'm allowed to say, ages. Like किसी ने मुझसे कह दिया कि तुम तो अच्छी हाउसवाइफ नहीं हो, तो वो अच्छी हाउसवाइफ नहीं हो कि वो प्रूफ करने के चक्कर में मैंने जिंदगी के 4-5 साल बिता दिए ये बताने के लिए कि मैं कितनी अच्छी कुक हूँ. So words beget power. Try to understand that, and all the words that are used in the feminine section are so powerful in Indian diaspora that they can make and break you.
Yes.
They can break you. Break you to the core, that you are shattered for your lifetime. You are absolutely turned into rubble because of the words that are being used to it. Forget about physical violence. I'm not talking about it.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. So I think if we are looking at the gender and even political perspective, even if you take politics and gender, then also the kind of language that is being used for a female politician is again very, very horrific, if I'm allowed to say that word, that we are always being doubted. If you have not forgotten, चक दे, निक्कर और बेलन चलाने वाली लोग हॉकी क्या चलाएंगे वगैरह वगैरह ideologies जो हैं that come from society only. So I think it's very apt. Thank you so much for bringing in this perspective of gender and dialogue, which will today only ponder 2 hours on what words are used for gender or specific roles in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your views. So if someone else wants to share their views, then they can. Otherwise, I'll just start with the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to start with the presentation. I hope I do justice with the topic. Okay, and if I'm not doing justice with the topic, you can always tell me that no, you are wrong. And since this is a platform for having dialogues and discussions, we can be open to that. So before we start this whole lecture, we'll have to understand that how words have been very significant in our communication. And when we are using words, then what is that intention with which we try to use words, at least, when we are using words in a positive sense? Because obviously words do have power and words could be used in a negative sense. But I would like to deal with the essence of words, in the sense that why they have been meant. to be a powerful tool in the hands of human beings, okay? Because we can express our views through the use of words, and we can use them in a negative way, we can use them in a positive way. But if we have to do something good to the humanity, let's look at the positive interpretation of it. So Yehuda Berg has described that words are singularly the most powerful force available to humanity. We can choose to use this force constructively with words or encouragement, words of encouragement, or destructively using words of despair. Words have energy and power with the ability to help, to heal, to hinder, to hurt, to harm, to humiliate, and to humble. So it means that words do have both the powers, positive as well as negative. So we can make a person by using those kind of encouraging words and positive aspects of it. And we can also destroy a person by using some kind of other words, like, just I mentioned, it has been the case with most of the females who have been outspoken. So words are one of the best means of expressing one's views, and that is why we say that words exhibit power. So that is my precondition, you would say presupposition, that what do we understand by words when we are saying that words exhibit power. So since and words are used in a dialogue, because whenever we want to have a dialogue, we'll have to use words. So it is very important to understand that how these two concepts are related to each other. And words are going to play a very powerful role in having a dialogue. And we will have to understand that the way we have seen that there can be two ways of using words, there can be two ways of having a dialogue to the acceptance of others' views, and a dialogue to the rejection of others' views, or the otherness, to apply this whole negative aspect of having a dialogue. So in order to have a dialogue, we need to utter words with meaning and listen to the words of other, which exerts some meaning. So obviously the conversation which is going on should be meaningful. And if we want such kind of conversations, such kind of dialogue to be meaningful, it means that at least we will have to accept that the words which are being used here in order to communicate do have some power, because they are meaningful. So until unless they have meaning, they cannot exert any power. So however, the simple statement, the way we have just taken it, this statement is not as simple as it looks first, because when we examine how in the context of having a dialogue, words need to be coming from a legitimate source in order to be meaningful, it leads us to the intersection of use of words to have dialogue with the power structure of society and agency of the speaker. So right now we'll have to see that how when we are using words in order to have a dialogue, it is not that you just have to be meaningful in the sense of uttering a sentence which has some meaning, but the meaning of your sentence is coming out of your position as an agent who has the agency to speak something which makes some sense. And also you can have a dialogue within a power structure, because you will have to be located within that. And all these aspects where words are included, communication is included, dialogue is included, participants' agency is included, and meaningfulness of words is included. Everything is intersecting with the other segment. So, before I move to the other part of it, I would like to once again open this floor for discussion. That do you think that, when I'm referring to the intersectionality between words, dialogues, agency of the participants, power structure of society, all of them can intersect in such a way that they can defeat the whole purpose of having a dialogue? Do you agree that this can happen because of the different kind of relationship among all these segments which I just mentioned? Am I clear about the question, or should I repeat it? Okay, so if there are no responses from your side, I would like to just extend this argument by saying that the way intersection works, uh, obviously every time whenever there is an intersection, not all the components are going to be equally powerful. Okay, like if at a particular situation there are some words used to have a dialogue in which two participants are there who are within a particular framework. Okay, that could be a framework of patriarchy, and these participants are agents. Agents means that they have the agency, that they can freely speak about their own experiences. So but whenever there is the intersectionality of all these components, at one point your agency, the agency of one of the participants could be so overwhelming that it can deny or it can replace the agency or entirely dismantle the agency of the other participant because of the power structure, overwhelming power structure, or it can destroy the whole purpose of communication or dialogue because of the power which is completely limited in the hands of one participant, whereas the other participant is not having that power. So what I mean to say here is that when we are looking at the intersectionality of all these components, each of these components become very important, and we'll have to be sure that whether all of these components are working at par or not, whether both of the participants who are if I'm limiting this communication to two participants only, then we'll have to make sure that whether they have agency to speak or not, and whether the framework under which they are speaking is in favor of one participant only, or giving power to one participant only, or it is distributing the power to both of the participants equally. So we'll have to be concerned about such kind of things. And mostly what happens that even in a dialogue where the dialogue is happening between a student and a teacher, we sometimes forget about such kind of possibilities of hierarchical relationship, because we think that since we are teacher, we have more knowledge and experience. So it's like the dialogue which is going on between a teacher and a student, that can be one-sided or at least lopsided, in the sense that teachers might say something which should be acceptable to the students. So if we are doing such kind of activities, it means that we are also following the same kind of power structure which we are trying to criticize here in the sense of gendered aspect. Okay, so with these lines, I'm moving towards the other slide, which is talking about understanding dialogue. Okay, so since we have to talk about how words are begetting power, and also then we can use those words in order to have a dialogue, we'll have to see that what kind of dialogue we want to have and what is the understanding of dialogue. Okay, so before we move towards the understanding of this intersectionality which I just referred to, let me explain what do I understand by dialogue. So dialogue is the creative thinking together that can emerge when genuine empathetic listening. Okay, this is very important, that there should be a genuine empathetic listening. The other person should be ready to listen to me. Okay, respect for all participants. It should not be the case that I have initially at the first stage has denied the other participant the capability to express his or her opinion. Safety, which means that you are safe to speak whatever you want to speak. There shouldn't be any threat. Peer relationships should be there. Suspending judgment, sincere inquiry. I'm not going to judge you, whatever you are going to say, and whatever you say, I'll go through a sincere inquiry to find out whether the arguments are correct or not. Courageous speech, that I shouldn't be afraid of your existence. Okay, if the other participants is making some kind of hints that he or she is more powerful than me, then I'll have to be courageous enough to speak myself out. And discovering and disclosing assumptions work together to guide our conversations. So when all these components are there, then only we can discover and disclose so many assumptions which are working there whenever we are having dialogue. So it is an activity of curiosity, cooperation, creativity, discovery, and learning, rather than persuasion, competition, fear, and conflict. So we'll have to see that the intention of having a dialogue is not to persuade the other person that you are wrong and I'm right. Okay. Neither is it any kind of competition where I have to defeat the other person. And fear or conflict are always not the intention of having any dialogue. So above all, it offers an environment where everyone is equally capable of truth and meaning, which helps break the logic, if I'm right, you are necessarily wrong. So do you people think that there is this necessary logic that if someone is right, the other person will have to be necessarily wrong? What is your opinion on this?
I think not necessary, ma'am. If someone is right, it doesn't mean that other person will be wrong.
Okay. So yeah, but how can this be happening? Like, how can both of the perspectives be right?
According to the different point of view. Like,
okay, good.
Someone
means that there shouldn't be any absolute understanding of right or truth. Okay, so
yes.
no one can say that I have the whole of the absolute notion of right or absolute notion of truth. So if there cannot be the possibility of having control over the absolute notion of right and absolute notion of truth, then obviously that opens up the platform for discussion, that people with different perspectives can share their opinion and can share the perspectives which can reveal different aspect of right or truth. Okay, so I'm against such kind of metaphysical assumption which says that there can be only one notion of truth, because I guess truth in itself is quite contested, and there is no absolute understanding of truth. So until unless we challenge this concept, we can never open the platform for sharing the opinion of different people and accepting the opinion of different people. So that in itself, this assertion in itself is quite important as per my understanding, if we are going to open any platform for discussion, for a healthy discussion or having a healthy dialogue. So then I would like to say here that the above mentioned understanding of dialogue reflects the following presuppositions of a successful dialogue. So there are two suppositions, okay, which are important to have when we are trying to have a successful dialogue. And the first one is that there has to be at least one rival, contradictory or contrary, okay, rival, not in the sense of the person who is going to kill you, okay, claim to knowledge as well as theory of knowledge being supported or opposed. Okay, so obviously if both of the persons are agreeing on all the points, then what's the point of having a dialogue? Okay, so but even though being a student of philosophy, I'll have to accept that even then there can be a use of having a dialogue, but let's not go into the other field, since dialogue is accepting or presupposing the existence of two people who are involved in a communication. Then obviously they should be on a different platform, they should have different point of views. So it means that, which has been put under the brackets, that the possibility of accepting the other here, since this the framework which I have used in order to make this presentation has capitalized everything, okay, all the words. But here specifically, I want to show that the accepting the other, here other has been used with capital O and not with small o, okay. So accepting the other means that whoever is other to yourself, okay. I hope the distinction between other with a small o and other with capital O is clear to you all. And when I'm using other here, I'm using it with capital O, because when we are not able to accept the other, capital O, then what happens that we actually are denying the possibility of having any contrasting view, okay. So if we want to be open to different perspective, so we should not be just open to different perspectives of the people of our own community, but people of other communities as well, whom we consider to be entirely other to ourselves. So is that point clear? The concept of other? I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And the second presupposition here is that of participants have to believe in the supremacy of reason and be ready without prejudice to go where it takes them. Even here in this precondition or presupposition, you can see that whenever we are going to have a dialogue, the dialogue in itself, the way it has been described, gives supremacy to reason, okay? And it means that it is subordinating the importance of emotions, okay? So I have certain reservations against this kind of presupposition, because dialogue is not only something which could be done with the help of reason only. Even our emotions are as important as reason is in order to have some kind of dialogue. So I don't take that only supremacy of reason is important. Emotions are also important. But why haven't I mentioned that point here in this discussion is because, since we are talking about power structure, generally what happens that we will have to establish equality among the participants, and that equality says that there is no one who is superior and there is no one who is inferior. And rationality has been considered to be that element which has created equality among the human beings, if we believe in whatever has been said by Kant, okay? Because he says that human beings are rational, and rationality is something which makes us all moral beings. But on the other hand, Kant himself has said that women are not rational beings because they are dependent beings. So we'll have to question this assertion that why women can't be a rational being. Okay, so that is why I haven't raised the issue of emotions. I have stick to the acceptance of rationality as the precondition of having a dialogue where, I think that whether it's women or men or people of other genders, all of them are rational enough to at least express their experiences and express their opinion, and all of them are capable of having a dialogue. So that makes us all equal to each other, and there is no place for any authority. So I hope all these two preconditions or presuppositions of having a successful dialogue is clear. And if that is so, I'm moving to the next slide. So whenever there is an authentic dialogue, there is no place for the absolute unassailable statement and an all-knowing person. So obviously we will have to kill the possibility of having a king, okay, who is all-knowing and who is the authoritative person. There is no king who can be the absolute who can give the absolute unassailable statement and who can be an all-knowing person. So everybody is just an individual, and testimony and rigid mindset have no role in a dialogue. So testimony and rigid mindset means here that, you cannot say that, as generally these arguments are used in Indian philosophy, that whatever I'm saying is supported by Vedas, and why my views are right because it is supported by Vedas, and who has written Vedas are human beings. So ultimately, Vedas are representing the views of human beings. So it creates a circular argument, and that is vicious circular argument. So whether it is the testimony or rigid mindset, both of them have no role to play in a dialogue. The underlying principle of the method of arriving at knowledge or truth through the method of dialogue and dialectic is the axiom that reason, the logos, guides us in our quest. So everybody has the faculty of reason, and everybody can have a dialogue by using that faculty of reason. And another point is that, which is very important one here, that dialogue does not happen in a vacuum. So obviously we'll have to have a context, a framework where there are knowers. We'll have to accept that both of the participants are knowers and they know what they are going to talk about. And since we are living in a patriarchal framework, the construction of truth, justice, and knowledge is biased in itself, and that biasness must be questioned in order to create the possibility of having dialogue between different groups who have largely not been parts of the mainstream. So it means that since dialogue cannot happen in a vacuum, and mostly we are living in a patriarchal framework, which means that all the constructions of truth and justice and knowledge have already been defined in terms of androcentric view. So that makes it very difficult for the marginalized group to say something which is going to go against the framework. So while we are having a dialogue within a framework, how can we go out of the framework and criticize the framework itself? That raises a metaphysical, that raises a very meta-ethical question here, where we will have to criticize such kind of dialogues which are constrained by a particular framework, where we cannot question the framework itself. And that is why we will have to open up this opportunity where we can criticize the framework itself. And that point of view has been presented by a very famous feminist epistemologist, Sandra Harding, who says that when you are presenting any theory, you will have to go back again and again and check whether whatever you are saying is actually right or not. So you will have to go back to your own framework, to your own theory, in order to find out whether your theory is working fine or not. So if we are going to have a dialogue and we have already set it up in a patriarchal framework, then obviously whoever is going against the very framework of the dialogue will never be acceptable. And that has been the major problem with our society, where whenever the marginalized group is trying to say something which hurts the corners of patriarchy, they start firing against that person. So because the dialogue in itself is one-sided, okay, because it has lopsided calculation or distribution of power. So until or unless the dialogue is happening in such a framework where we can be capable of criticizing the framework itself, we cannot say that we are having a dialogue in a true sense. So I would like to stop here and ask your opinion that, whatever I have said about the possibility of having a dialogue, do you agree with whatever I have said, or do you have some other point of view over that? Or am I making any sense? That can also be a question. Does anyone want to share their opinion?
Yeah, Dr. Ritu,
Mm-hmm.
this is Deepti here. What I was thinking was the presuppositions, the two things that you have mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The other, yes, I could understand that. The second part being the rational part of it.
Yes.
Is it, I don't know, because somewhere I was feeling see, we have seen, for example, many of us might have seen that picture, the old woman and the young woman that keeps roaming around the WhatsApp also. Both the features are embedded in the same picture. Some of us get to see it or perceive it as an old woman, and the others get to see it as the young woman. Now, when there is a kind of discussion among the students, like since I teach, I keep showing this picture and I do it as an experiment with the students. So half of them try using the facts and convince the other group, and the other groups try to use the same facts and convince that it is not a young woman but an older woman. But somehow when you're using rationality as a base, you can never reach through the other. And the facts can sometimes be just, it can be used to, enforce one's perception, I feel. So how do we go beyond it then?
Okay. So I thank you, ma'am, for expressing your views. I don't think that this kind of change of perspective can be a problem when we are using rationality as a basis of having a communication. Because I'm not understanding rationality in the way it has been described by Kant, Immanuel Kant, or Aristotle. Okay, so it is not only it is not something which is like, you know, entirely captured by the faculty of reason, in the sense that where you have to be logical all the time, where you have to be scientific all the time. Yeah, I told you that I even wanted to involve emotions as well, because, you know, the perspectives can also be coming from your emotions. But I didn't bring that up here, just to make it as simple as possible, to give agency to both the speakers. So that rationality can also include the possibility of showing your different perspectives. So like, you know, the way you have given this example of old lady and young lady, there is always there is also an example of looking at the same picture as duck and rabbit. Okay, so and it is a very famous example where Thomas Kuhn and Karl Popper, who are very famous philosophers of science, they're looking at the same structure of scientific development, and one is saying that I can look at it and it seems to be a duck to me, whatever you are describing as rabbit. So it means that even these philosophers of science who are using completely the faculty of reason, they can have a difference of opinion related to the structure and related to their perspectives. So I don't think that, you know, that difference of opinion or difference of perspectives is going to create any sort of inequality among the you know, among the participants. I hope I have made clear this point to you.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can I just add to something that I read when I was teaching students in a psychology class about Jane Elliott's experiment of saying that the blue eyes children make more mistake than the brown eyes children in one class. And in another school, she did saying that the, you know, blue-eyed children, brown-eyed children made more mistake than the blue-eyed. And there was a dialogue, or the children started feeling that, okay, yes, because I have blue eye, I can make a mistake. And the other group started thinking that because I've got brown eyes as thing. So I feel that dialogue is, yes, it is embedded in power. But he asked question as to why you are saying that blue-eyed children make more mistake than the brown-eyed. Because teacher told, because teachers said, they felt that the dialogue is very meaningful and they are stupid and they are bound to make mistake. And they took it on themselves, saying that, oh, we are fools. It's okay. It's fine. They don't question the authority. Jane Elliott did the same experiment with water fountain, saying that, okay, those brown-eyed children are more powerful, so they can drink directly from the water fountain. And the blue-eyed children are weak, so they have to use a paper cup. And they really started feeling that, yes, we are less capable of doing that. This is an experiment which is embedded in the fields of educational psychology, and we have been referring it quite a lot. So yes, dialogue is power structured. The amount of power given to an X person ultimately has an effect on the dialogue that is being made. This is what I would like to add to what you have been saying, and this is probably I'm understanding. I don't know whether I'm understanding right or wrong, but this is what I'm understanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for expressing your views and giving such a helpful example. But I would like to beg to differ here, because in that example, students are not in dialogue with the authority, with the teachers. Okay, they're not having any kind of dialogue. Never the teachers does have the intention of having a dialogue. They're rather imposing their views or their research or whatever they think about the children on them. So that is why, you know, and sometimes it's very even amazing to see that whatever has been said by the teacher in the class, and if, you know, one of the parents try to contest that, students won't listen to their parents. They will say that, no, my teacher has said this and this should be true. Okay, so that understanding is coming from their power, you know, the power they have in their hands, even though, you know, parents do have power too, but, you know, they have less probably power than the teachers do. But here we are not having any kind of dialogue, because we have never given this opportunity to the children to share their opinion and their experiences, that whether whatever we are saying is actually true or not. We have imposed this understanding on them, and now they are like, vulnerable, in the sense that they are thinking that whatever has been said to us is actually right. And I would like to compare this example with those of the situation of women, where women have been largely said that, you are like this, you are like that, and see, since you are women, you can't do this, since you are a woman, you can't do that. And we start feeling like that because, that has been conditioned, that has been conditioning in such a way. And this happens to men as well, that the way we have been conditioned by patriarchal norms, we think that we have to behave in that way only, and that can only give us some kind of agency. Okay, so I guess, in that sense, we are not having dialogue, we are just trying to impose the ideas on the other person. So I hope that I'm making my point clear here. Okay, thank you for sharing your opinion. And I'm going to this slide where once again, I'm going to discuss two very significant conditions for the possibility of having a dialogue. Okay, because gender is the issue at stake, I want to be very careful, okay, that whether I'm referring to all those problems which are involved whenever there is gender-based dialogue. So whether I have done justice to that or not, I want to be very clear about that. And that is why I'm trying to unfold various layers of dialogue. Okay, so once again, we have two significant conditions for the possibility of having a dialogue. One of them is the authenticity of both the parties as knowers. So we'll have to accept that, the other person can also be a knower. Okay, if we think that I know everything and the other person doesn't know everything, so it's like, my question will be, what do you know about this thing? So there is no, there is no way that we can have this dialogue. So it's like, if we talk about this whole case of marital rape, okay, where women are trying to say that we can be raped even within a marital institution of marriage, that dialogue, the possibility of having such kind of dialogue in itself, it seems to be impossible, because the person who is trying to express her experience is not accepted to be a knower. Okay, her experience is denied, because you think that whatever she is experiencing, the experience of having some kind of sexual activity as being enforced on him and being considered as a rape, that understanding of that knower in itself is ineligible. And that is why we think that the woman who is speaking those words is not a knower. So in that way, there cannot be a dialogue between two partners, because the other person is denying, one person is denying the other person the capability of being a knower. And the other condition is that the validity of one's opinion based on one's experience. Once again, I would like to give the same example. So we'll have to accept the validity of one's opinion because it is based on one's experience. Until or unless we give legitimacy to other person's experience, we won't be able to understand what they are trying to talk about. So it's like, if somebody is complaining against domestic violence or marital rape, and if we say that, marital rape doesn't exist, it means that you are entirely neglecting or making illegitimate this whole experience, the one who is going through that experience. So until unless we are stopping ourselves from doing these two things, we cannot have a dialogue. Okay. So once again, that has to go against the power structure which works. So if these two conditions are not fulfilled, then even if the dialogue is happening, it will lead to epistemic injustice. Okay, what is this epistemic injustice? This concept has been introduced by Miranda Fricker, and Miranda Fricker says that epistemic injustice is a concept where we do injustice to the other person just because we don't think that they can know about their own position or they can be a knower. So we deny them this whole possibility of being a knower, okay? And that could be because of power, because of stereotypes, because of social constructions, okay? And because of like a stereotyping threat or something else. But, this epistemic injustice could be understood in two forms. One is the testimonial injustice, and another one is the hermeneutical injustice. So what is this testimonial injustice? Testimonial injustice is where we don't believe the other person because we don't think that the other person is capable enough to understand whatever is happening with her, okay, or with him. So it's like, I don't believe someone if someone is saying that, if let's say that I'm very rich, okay, and you have been knowing me as a rich person, but sometimes I tell you that I can understand what does it mean to not have a car, okay? So you will say that, what are you talking about? You are a rich person, you can buy a car anytime. So your experience of not having a car, that is bullshit, and you cannot say that this makes any sense. So it means that whatever I'm saying, you are judging or evaluating my concept not because of my experience, not because of whatever I'm saying, but because of my position, because of my context from which I'm saying something. So with women, generally it happens that they have to face testimonial injustice because, I'll deal with those examples later on in this presentation, where even in Quran or even in Hindu text, it has been said where women are saying something, they are trying to express truth, it is not believed immediately because it is understood that these are women and they are very emotional, so they don't know what is the truth. So we will have to find out whether whatever they are saying is actually true or not. So that is the testimonial injustice we do against women. And there is another type of injustice, epistemic injustice, which is called hermeneutical injustice. Hermeneutical injustice can happen at two levels. One is when you yourself is not capable of understanding what is happening with you, okay? So if like a woman is domestically violated and she thinks that it is natural in an institution of marriage, then it means that she is going through hermeneutical injustice because she herself is not capable of understanding that what kind of injustice she is facing. And the other sort of hermeneutical injustice could be where you understand that you are going through a particular sort of injustice, but you are, just because you are not capable of translating your experience in the words of the, in those words which could be understood by the other person, your experience is denied. So once again, I'll take the example of marital rape, that marital rape is not understood by most of the people because they think that this concept in itself is very contested, because once you are in a marriage, how can your husband cannot rape you, okay? That concept cannot exist, and that is why if any woman is facing this problem, it is entirely denied. So if we do not follow the two conditions which are mentioned here on this page, then we are doing epistemic injustice against the other participant who is involved in a dialogue. So I hope this whole concept of epistemic injustice is clear to all of you. And that is very important. And if somebody is interested in knowing about this whole concept of epistemic violence and epistemic injustice, they can read Miranda Fricker, Elizabeth Anderson, Lauren Cole in Code. These are some of the very famous feminist scholars who have talked about this sort of epistemic injustice. So now I'm moving towards the next slide, where it is written that dialogue is not about judging, weighing, or making decisions, but about understanding and learning. So most of the people take it wrong when they think that by having a dialogue, we necessarily have to come to a decision. So if that enforcement is there, that we have to make a decision, then obviously that very understanding that we'll have to come to a decision shows as if somebody has to win, okay, in having a dialogue. So once it becomes the matter of winning the case and losing the case, then obviously power structure does get involved. But this understanding of dialogue is once again defeating its purpose, and we'll have to understand that dialogue is not about making any decision, but it is about understanding and learning, that we'll have to understand that we can agree to disagree. At various points, there cannot be any particular decision to which we can come up. So if there is no possibility of making a decision, that's fine. And if we are trying to understand the other person or each other's feelings, that is proper enough, and that satisfies the whole purpose of having a discussion or dialogue. So dialogue dispels stereotypes, builds trust, and enables people to be open to perspectives that are very different from their own. So we'll have to be open to different perspectives. However, the difficulties in creating dialogue as a method of mitigating epistemic injustice are: we need to have a common language where both the parties could understand each other's points of view. So, when on the one hand we are saying that we'll have to have dialogue, not to make any decision, not to evaluate anyone, not to judge anyone, but to understand each other's experiences and learn each other's experiences, then what are the problems we might have to face is that we need to have a common language where both of the parties could understand each other's point of view. And that becomes very difficult, because if I'm someone who is a feminist and I don't want to use the language of patriarchy, and the other person who is the byproduct of patriarchy and he or she wants to use the language of patriarchy, then to have a dialogue, a healthy dialogue between us becomes very difficult. Okay, so because of the lack of that common language, because both of us will be just talking in terms of arguments which will be going entirely against each other. So that is the first thing which will have to, the first difficulty which we will have to face when, we are trying to have a healthy dialogue. And the other point is that we need to develop the understanding of the validity of others' lived experience. So when we are trying to understand the validity of others' lived experience, it means that we will have to transgress our understanding of our situatedness. So it might be the case that since I belong to the third world country, it might be very difficult for me to understand the lived experiences of first world women. And likewise, for first world women, it might be very difficult to understand the lived experiences of the third world women. So in that case, once again, to create a common understanding and common framework becomes very difficult to be achieved. And the third point, we need to be open to the acceptance of possibility of being captured in a structural framework. So we will have to be aware that we might be captured by a particular structural framework. And that is very challenging, because once we believe in something, we don't think that we are captured by that belief. And I guess, most of the problems which are occurring in today's world is because of the lack of this acceptance that we might be captured by a particular thinking, and we might be not thinking rationally when we are taking any decision just because we are captured. Okay, so we will have to accept and be open to this possibility of understanding and accepting that we can be captured too. And if we accept this possibility, then only we can try to come out of that captured belief and try to understand those who are not believing in the same thing which I do. Okay, so here this becomes very important. So now the next point of view here is I am going to discuss Mikhail Bakhtin's theory of dialogue. Okay, which is very interesting, because the way Bakhtin has interpreted dialogue and the understanding of multiple perspectives and creating myriad possibilities, that is very interesting, because he associates it with a system of language. So this double inverted quoted version of this statement which I'm reading here is very important, because he says that dialogic relations presuppose a language. So obviously, if we want to have a dialogue, we will have to have a language, okay? But they do not reside within the system of language. So we will have to understand this possibility that dialogue do not have to reside within the system of language. We can move out of a particular language and go enter into some other kind of language in order to have a dialogue. So it has not to be limited by a particular language. Okay. So this statement in itself is very important, because that can only create the possibility of having a discourse where we are open to accepting various levels of, like, various perspectives and others' opinions. So after discussing this important point of whatever Mikhail Bakhtin has said, I'll stop here for 1 minute once again. I would like to ask whether you would like to add something to whatever I have said till now, or should I go ahead? Okay, so I guess I can go ahead with the next slide, which is like, dialogue is, which says that there are certain challenges we face when we are trying to have a dialogue. Dialogue is a delicate process. Many obstacles inhibit dialogue and favor more confrontational communication forms, such as discussion and debate. Common obstacles, including fear, the display or exercise of power, mistrust, external influences, distractions, and poor communication conditions, can all prevent dialogue from emerging. So we have already discussed this point, so no need to discuss it further. And when I'm going through all these challenges which we have to face in having a dialogue, my point is that, before we can tout dialogue, it is important to examine whether the preconditions of having a dialogue could be available to everyone without any prejudice to their situatedness in a particular context or not. So we'll have to make it sure that with whomever I'm going to have a dialogue, that person should also be situated almost in a similar position in which I am, so that there can be a proper dialogue between two people. So the answer is that dialogue could only succeed in achieving its goal only if the participants, first have the agency, second, they have the right to speak, third, are accepted as authentic knowers, fourth, are respected under the circumstances they live, five, they do not belong to a hierarchical power structure, and six, are accepted as equals. So let's talk about all these 6 criteria one by one, that whether they apply to women in a patriarchal structure or not. And I'm not referring to all the women. So obviously, there can be a point of view that nowadays women are very empowered. Okay, so some of the women can have dialogue, okay, which is like, which could be very powerful, but mostly this opportunity is denied to women. So why? Because first of all, we don't think that they have the agency, they can make decisions, they can understand the situation well. Second is that we don't think that they have the right to speak. They themselves are conditioned in such a way that they don't think that they can speak whatever they are thinking or whatever they want to say. And then they are hardly accepted as authentic knowers, because generally it is said that since they are limited in a household, they don't have any idea about the politics and whatever is going on in the world. So that is why, sometimes we even reject their knowledge of their own experiences, because we think that they are not rational enough. And they are not respected under the circumstances they live, because women are largely situated within a household, and we think that the work they do is very tedious and it is not that important and should not be respectable, because that is something. Hello, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So, and that is one of the points. And then they do not, they belong to a hierarchical power structure, obviously, okay? And they're not accepted as equals. So all these things are creating problems whenever they're, whenever we are trying to have dialogue between men and women, okay? So now we are coming to the point, where we have to discuss about the possibility of having a dialogue, but we see that mostly dialogues are gendered dialogues. Okay, so since the title itself says that words beget power or power begets words, so actually, I have used this title as not disjunctive in the sense that either the first one is true or the second one is true. I'm taking it to be the inclusive disjunction where both of the aspects are actually complementary, okay? Because words beget power and power begets words. So this was the whole, this title is rhetoric in itself, where I wanted to pose this question, but this was a sarcastic comment rather, and that is why it is a rhetorical one, where I would like to replace or with and say that words beget power and power begets words. So this paper, through this title, I would like to make an attempt to show that the common framework under which a dialogue takes place is largely patriarchal, and that is why the marginalized section lacks the power to express her point of view without any obstruction. So since we are living in a patriarchal framework, obviously we do not, the marginalized sections, largely women, do not, even though they are not marginalized in the sense of quantity, but they are marginalized in the sense of quality of life. Okay, so they cannot have the power to express their point of views without any obstruction. So in this paper, I'm going to discuss about the incidents where a woman tries to speak of her experience or point of view, which presupposes the existence of a listener as the other. Okay, so obviously when a woman is trying to explain or describe her experience, there should be the other, okay, but with capital O, not with the, but with small o and not the capital O, because when woman herself will assume that the other is entirely other to her experience, obviously there can be no possibility of having a communication or dialogue. So in this context, I would like to make a distinction between the way a man speaks to a woman and a woman speaks to a man in a dialogue, okay, in the reference of a dialogue. So when a man speaks, he can take the existence of the woman partner whom he is in dialogue with as an other who occupies the place of, using the terms mentioned by Martin Buber, it. So let me explain this concept of it. Martin Buber has said that whenever we are trying to face the other person, okay, the other thing, the other here could be it, okay, it, where we don't think that the other partner can share his opinion. So if we are sharing our opinion with something from where I'm not going to get any feedback or any response, then the conversation is monological. So we are having a monologue where the other is not participating in the communication. And on the other hand, when the other is participating in the communication, then the other becomes you. Okay, so first kind of relation is between I and it, and the second kind of relationship is between I and you. So we will have to see that when a man speaks with a woman or comes in dialogue with a woman, whether a man considers the woman as an it or as a you. Okay, that is the question here. So Martin Buber, in his best known work I and Thou, says that a human being is the being who faces an other. So whoever is on the other side, that person becomes the other, and I will be the self. So we understand ourselves when we consider the ways in which we relate to other beings. Our modes of relating with others define our own mode of being. They shape who we are and how we live. Okay, so the way we communicate with others, that also defines what kind of people we are. We might approach the other as an it, okay, a thing to examine, to categorize, to analyze, to predict, and to use. So for us, that it becomes the object which needs to be examined, categorized, and all. And in this I and it relationship, we don't give any agency to the other. Such an approach has a profound effect on who we become or who the I is. In this I-it kind of experience, in such an experience, we become, for instance, distanced observers, self-enclosed and solitary. We stand back and do not participate. So this mode of communication is monologue. So whenever we are trying to examine something and we are trying to analyze something, we are not having a dialogue, we are just having a monologue. So that is the understanding or clarification which has been given by Martin Buber. But I'm going to apply this understanding in a slightly different way, because I have to look at the gendered perspective of this I and it relationship, okay, or I and you relationship. So although the way Buber has described the meaning of it is taken into the context of monologue, I want to argue that when men try to have dialogue with women, where they consider women to be incapable of understanding the subject matter and consider them to be cognitively incompetent, they treat women as it rather than you. So you can get the point here that when a man is having a dialogue with a woman and consider that the woman is not able to participate in a dialogue, it means that he thinks that he has to say everything and tell the woman all the things, and he is equating the existence of woman with it. Okay, she is not a you. Okay, since in such a scenario, men consider women as someone who has to listen to the words uttered by them and not to counter them, as they are incapable of doing so. It is symptomatic of a broader, long-standing political problem. The problem of a hierarchy of truth in which some people, usually white, heterosexual, cisgender men, are assumed to be truthful, and others, usually women, people of color, and queer or non-gender conforming individuals, are not. So we can see this in the reluctance of many, like prosecutors, police, judges, and all, who don't want to believe whatever is being said by a woman. And we face such kind of problems. We read about such kind of problems women face all the time when the police is not reporting the FIR against being raped or sexually harassed, because they don't believe that these women can say they are ditching someone, or they are not saying the truth. They're trying to trap men. So is this equation of you, I and it is clear to everyone? Is it understandable? Okay. Thank you. Now I'm moving towards the other part of it. It says that every day, many white men are taken as real truth tellers, and members of marginalized groups are portrayed as unreliable speakers or as outright liars, especially when making claims that challenge the dominance. So, these kind of examples have been mentioned by so many feminist thinkers who think that generally, if we talk about America, there the white versus black hierarchical relationship exists, and obviously class distinction is also there, and everywhere in the world almost gendered relationship exists. So Elizabeth Markowitz is saying that dominant norms of truth-telling privilege a stereotypically masculine style of talk, self-confidence, certainty, and a seemingly dispassionate tone that demonstrate the speaker's commitment to the discussion. So I would like to share a very, very funny example here, that what used to happen that although I shouldn't be saying this in a public platform, so I'll try to elaborate it in a slightly different manner, that if you want to enter into a library or an institution, okay, and if you are not a legal member of that institution, and if you want to convince the guards there that you are a member of that institution, and that is why you want to enter into the institution without showing any I card, then what you have to show is that, obviously you have to present yourself as someone who is saying the truth. Okay, कि हाँ मैं ये हूँ Dr. XYZ, and I have this power or at least authority to enter into this institution because I am affiliated to this institution, whereas you know that you are telling a lie. Okay, so you have to present this lie in the form of a truth. So how will you do it? Like, obviously, if you are very self-confident, when you are saying it with confidence, and you are certain about this fact that you are actually saying the truth, and if you are saying it in a very dispassionate tone, that okay, yeah, I'm the student here, and I'm affiliated to this institution, and right now I don't have the ID, but it's in my room, and I can show you later on. But on the other hand, if you lose your confidence, and you start mumbling that okay, yeah, I'm a student of this institution, then obviously the guards are going to have doubts on you, even though you are a student of, even though it is true that you are a student of that institution. But since you do not carry the ID card at that time, so you lack that confidence because you don't have the ID. But the guards will start doubting you because you are not that confident, you are not that certain about your own assertions. And that is why it seems that you can ditch someone, you can deceive someone by showing by saying a lie with such a confidence and certainty that the other person believes you. Okay, and whereas even if you are saying a truth but you are not certain and confident about it, then the other person won't believe it. So it's like these characteristics of how do you decide whether the particular person is saying a truth or not, that is stereotypically designed on a masculine style of talk, because stereotypically, generally it is said that women are not that confident, okay, and women are not that certain about making their decisions, and they are like very emotionally involved, they are not dispassionate. So truth is something which is associated with confidence, certainty, and dispassionate, rather than and these are masculine traits in comparison to the feminine traits. So do you people associate yourself with this kind of distinction which has been created by Elizabeth Markowitz? And have you ever experienced these kind of things? Okay, so I guess the time is it's 4:30. How much time do I have now? The time is already over.
Ma'am, it's totally up to you. You can finish it now and maybe have this a discussion.
I have still some slides.
Yes. Okay, so you go ahead. No problem. We have till 6 p.m. So
okay, until the listeners are dying, I would like to speak. Okay, so this another part where Kathleen Hanna is sharing her experience in the punk singer, that I just think she's saying that I just think there is this certain assumption that when a man tells the truth, it is the truth, and when a woman, as a woman, I go to tell the truth, I feel like I have a negotiate. I have to negotiate the way I'll be perceived. Like I feel like there is always the suspicion around a woman's truth, the idea that you are exaggerating. There is this whole fear that I'm gonna have finally fucking have stepped to the plate and told the truth, and someone's going to say, oh, I don't think so. Okay, so this is her experience, that she says that mostly I think that since I'm a woman and whatever I'm going to say, that will be frowned upon and people won't believe whatever I say, because just because I'm a woman. So she's sharing her opinion. This description raises another important question, like who is authorized to tell the truth, and whether truth could be objective and universal. So once again, we are back to this question, that whether truth could be objective and universal or not. And we have already discussed that no, we don't believe that truth could be objective and universal. Okay, so if these questions are, however, we know that there are people who believe that truth is one and truth is universal. So if these questions are answered affirmatively, then the possibility of having a dialogue with someone who belongs to the marginalized group will be redundant, as their viewpoint as assuring whatever has already been said by those who are in power does not contribute anything to dialogue, because they are just saying whatever has been said by the powerful people. And if they contest whatever has been said, then that will not be considered as truth and as something which could be believed in. So just because they are trying to say just the opposite of whatever has been said by the influential person, obviously they won't be believed in, because whoever is in power is actually telling the truth. So hence we will have to question such kind of communication where the other participant just remains at the level of speculative partner in dialogue. So basically, when I say speculative partner in dialogue, I'm referring to that speculative partner as an it. That speculative partner is not a you, if we borrow the terms from Martin Buber. Okay, so now I'm coming to this parriciastic practices, which has been referred to by Michel Foucault. Okay, and he says, what is this parriciastic practice, where you are very much confident that whatever you are saying is actually true. Okay, so you are very outspoken, and whatever you are saying, you have complete control over whatever you want to say or whatever you feel. Okay, so these practices are generally associated with men. Okay, and here it is said that we need to get involved into parriciastic practices that can initiate individuals into autonomous experiences of authorizing and being authorized, that in releasing them from the hold of authoritative or disciplinary discourse and norms, then open onto capacities to initiate social and political change that otherwise appear out of reach. So obviously, when we accept that the parriciastic practices can be possible at the level of at the level of individuals, then only we can think that it is like women too can be influential enough to share their opinion. Just a minute, I'm getting a call. Just a sec. Can you mute me? Since I'm sharing the screen, I'm not able to.
You're muted, ma'am. Okay, do I unmute you? Now you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so by believing in this notion only, we can lead to the next level of having a dialogue where we consider the other of the dialogue as a you and enter into an encounter of mutual participation and reciprocity, in which our whole selves, not just certain fragmented qualities, are acknowledged and affirmed. In this case, our mode of communication is dialogue. So whenever we consider the other person as a you, not as an it, then only the dialogue can take place. So men can only have a dialogue with women when they presuppose that women are autonomous, have agency, are rational, and can have a point of view which might not fit in the world of experience a man has. So we have already discussed all these points. So I'm coming to the last part of this discussion, where I'm trying to create a distinction between what happens when a woman is having a dialogue with a man, and she considers herself to be an it, because she, according to the hierarchical structure of patriarchy, she cannot consider the man to be the it. Okay, in such kind of hierarchical relationship, she considers herself to be the it, okay, and not as a self. So what happens in these conditions? That women can also be in a monological relation with men while having a dialogue. Okay, why? Because when they consider themselves to be incapable of making any significant point of view or being competent enough to challenge the power structure in which women's experience can contest the so-called normal understanding of the course of actions. So it's like, women themselves doubt their capacity that they can be a knower. And that is why they consider themselves to be the it in a dialogue. So even though they are trying to have a dialogue, they rather convert it into a monologue because they are not able to speak it out. So they become the it and men remain the I. Since in these sorts of dialogues, women do not give agency to themselves and the discourse remains fixed in a patriarchal framework. So in these cases, women either silence themselves about expressing their experiences or speak the language of the mainstream, which has been the source of their suppression. So either they don't want to express their experiences as they are, or even if they express it, they don't want, they just want to say whatever they are supposed to be saying. Okay, so Lakoff, who is a very famous scholar, she says that the irony here is that women are made to feel that they deserve such treatment because of inadequacies in their own intelligence and or education. But in fact, it is precisely because women have learned their lessons so well that they later suffer such discrimination. So it's like, they have already admitted that whatever is happening with them is actually right. And the course of actions can never change because they are women. So each women generally transmit this tradition to the other women, saying that, even though you have to suffer a lot in an institution of marriage or something else, but since you are a woman, you will have to go through such kind of experiences and you cannot do anything about it. So it's like, they themselves have internalized that whatever positions they have in society, that can never be challenged or they can never be changed. So the question arises here that what is the reason for their silence? Why not give body to their work through the power of the word? So it's like, why their body is only limited to something which has to be analyzed? Why can't they talk through their body, and that too in a powerful way? So why have been they silent about their experiences? Why not eternalize their heroism through discourses? Why are we not talking about their sufferings and the way they have tried to come out of that suffering? So Lakoff once again expresses that it will be found that the overall effect of women's language, meaning both language restricted in use to women and language descriptive of women alone, is this: it submerges a woman's personal identity by denying her the means of expressing herself strongly, on the one hand, and encouraging expressions that suggest triviality in subject matter and uncertainty about it. So obviously, a woman's identity couldn't be strong enough to exert itself. And also, like, they do not have powerful expressions enough which can neglect the triviality of their subject matter, their experiences. And when a woman is being discussed by treating her as an object, sexual or otherwise, but never a serious person with individual views, the ultimate effect of these discrepancies is that women are systematically denied access to power on the grounds that they are not capable of holding it, as demonstrated by their linguistic behavior along with other aspects of their behavior. So we can understand that how this whole power structure is working at every level, starting from the very initial levels of women's experiences, of their language, of their body, of their conditioning, so that they are never able to get out of this experience, that they can have this power to speak out, and they can even make their experiences legitimate. So in short, they do self-silencing, okay, at most of the time. So self-silencing grows as women adopt cultural schemas about their proper role and behavior in intimate relationships, which run counter to their need for connectedness. So as was discussed by one of the ma'ams, I forgot the name, that she was trying to be the wife, the mother, okay, the cook, and she has to be the good wife. So that is what happens, that we do this act of self-silencing. We want to fit in with that cultural schema where we are supposed to be doing something, and we don't want to go against that framework. So silencing behaviors include putting the needs of others first, censoring and repressing genuine emotion of ours, and judging themselves by external standards. So once again, whatever you have faced, that says the story here, that, we are always trying to judge our actions from the external standards. As such, self-denial and silencing lead to the eventual loss of self. And this loss renders one vulnerable. So obviously, if you are keep silencing yourself, then you go into the phase of self-denial, when you never want to assert yourself and try to show others what do you want, because you are always trying to judge yourself from the external standards. So this is like, when women consider themselves to be in it position in a dialogue. So this kind of relationship is also ascertained when women speak their minds. So the first case where women consider themselves to be it is when they themselves are not capable of expressing their views. But second case, where even they are trying to be following this parasthetic practice, where they are trying to express their views, even then they become it. But here, they are not converting themselves in the position of it, but the society is converting themselves then into the position of it. So this kind of relationship is also ascertained when women speak their minds. Bearing such a privilege in their mind that they can speak, they position themselves as the mouthpiece of women folk, the ones who could speak out with much courage about the many things women could not speak about. As such, they embark on a mission of giving voice to the voiceless prisoners of the shackling traditions and customs. So these women are those who are trying to speak up for women, and they are trying to express the experiences of women. And still they are in the position of it. Why? They are criticized because they are criticized for speaking against the stream, and then trolled for not what they said, for what they are. They are women. They are sexual objects. We get to hear the examples of such kind of cases every now and then, where women who have said something which is contested by the majority are abused and threatened to be raped. In such cases too, women are just considered to be it and not the I. Okay, so you can see that how the society itself is refraining women from having any kind of dialogue with others, because they won't allow them to come up to the stage of being an agent who can speak their mind out. Okay, I approach this by reading the masculinist manipulation of speech and silence as the means of ideologically framing and communicatively constituting women's disenfranchisement and their sense of self. So in a way, we are trying to reject their understanding as a self, okay, by not allowing them to speak their mind. So here, since their views are against the masculine language, which owns the language of power and belongs exclusively to the male domains, they are thrown out of agency. We get to see the extent to which women's voices are systematically silenced by the sexism of society as a whole. How asymmetries of power constituted in communication practices frame women's disenfranchisement, and more specifically, their loss of agency and sense of self. So I'm moving towards the other part of it, where theories of communication competence in mainstream theorizing are rooted in the premise that the enactment of effective behavior is dependent on individual choice and unlimited agency. The agentic approach is based on assumptions that are grounded in a mode of action in which the power to act and coordinate in a planned and rational manner and to exercise control over conditions and means is taken for granted. So just excuse me for a second.
Sure.
Just delivering a lecture from home. Okay, so now I'm moving to this agentic approach, where we will have to accept that women can be agents, and obviously will have to accept that they can have their own individual choices as well. And I'm reading the third point, which says that the agency of marginalized groups, particularly women, is always subject to curtailment through the control of discursive practices that reinscribe and reproduce positions of subordination. Therefore, as Disaniak observes, it is important not to treat the notion of human agency, as some are wont to do, as a trans-discursive and non-problematic category. So we'll have to consider that, being a woman is not something which is beyond our understanding. Being a woman just means that we can have the possibility of going beyond the patriarchal understanding. Okay, and then we can understand that how women are facing some other kind of feelings or experiences which are not that common to men. So Smith foregrounds resistance as the condition of human agency, a very important step for feminist communication scholarship. If resistance is indeed at the core of agency, then as Disaniak suggests, agency can be viewed as the locus from which action can be initiated, whether that action is of resistance or reconfirmation. So ultimately, even though I started with this whole discussion of having a dialogue to understand each other's understanding, but I'm moving towards a very, you can say, radical position where I'll have to say that if the framework itself is not able to understand women's experiences, then probably women will have to choose the option of going for revolution instead of trying again without any success. So in order to be in I position, women will have to speak out their experience, and the other will have to accept the possibility of such dialogue. Otherwise, the whole purpose of having a dialogue between people of different genders will be defeated. There can always be this possibility to overthrow the well-accepted framework of dialogue and create a new one. And that is not against the spirit of dialogue. So my position is this, that, if the framework in which we are trying to have a dialogue in itself becomes problematic, then probably in order to include the experiences of marginalized groups, we need to change the framework itself of a dialogue. Okay, so it might be the case that the basic principles of dialogue could be challenged because they are not in favor of women's experiences. So however, we will have to be careful that this kind of dialogue can only happen when the other is ready to accept its possibilities. Obviously, we cannot say that we cannot just be very authoritative in the sense that reject the possibility of having an other in the dialogue. But what we have to do is to, since identities are constructed within a set of power relations, and as individuals enact their gendered positions appropriately, they reproduce and maintain the asymmetries of power. So obviously, whenever we will try to have a dialogue in a different framework, then once again, there can be a possibility of having an asymmetry of power. So what we have to do is to understand this whole power thing, which is working here in a different sense. And then probably when we understand power from a different perspective, then only we can understand that how we can have a powerful dialogue between two people who are placed at the same place. So gender, we know that gender is constructed within particular configurations of power. And as individuals do gender appropriately, they reinscribe normative definitions of masculinity and behavior that are embedded in a variety of everyday sites show that ideologies mobilize various types of symbolic forms in order to sustain the gender asymmetry. If gender is assumed to be a fluid, ongoing social construction and not an objectively determined category, then gendered subjectivities are constantly shifting processes and potentially multiple. So we'll have to do this. We'll have to make sure that we do not fix gender into a particular category which can never be changed. We'll have to accept this possibility that it is a fluid concept and it can change over the period. It is not like, if you are a man, then you are rational only. And if you're a woman, then you are emotional only. So we will have to change this understanding of gender itself so that we can change the understanding of self and agency too. And women can also be capable of expressing their point of views. So this is a very powerful framework for communication scholars because it serves as a heuristic to situate micro-level interactions against the large discursive fields. Locating women's position against a social and cultural network provides a theoretical vantage point for understanding the constitution of identities within ideological structures. So we'll have to create a vantage point from which we can also understand women's experiences. And silence assumes coercive dimensions as a patriarchal mechanism to produce and manage women's roles of subordination. The struggle over speech and silence became the site where gendered identities and power hierarchies were constructed. Vidon notes that in order to maintain current levels of patriarchal power, ways of giving meaning to experience that redefine hegemonic gender norms must be discredited or marginalized. The silencing of women becomes an instrument to force women to accept and enact the patriarchal order. So obviously, we don't have to be silenced. And if we are silenced, it means that we are affirming to the patriarchal norms. So the question ultimately is how to constitute power out of a position of powerlessness, because in a patriarchal framework, women are generally powerless, okay? So, and we have to move towards the aspect of power, which is not patriarchal in its structure. So until we disintegrate the relation of power with words, the way it is integrated with words, because once you integrate power and word, obviously those words which are powerful will always remain so. So we have to make fluid this relationship, this integration of power and word. We cannot create a world of having a different communication, and until we are capable of doing that, we cannot have a world where different sort of communications are also possible, where hierarchy is not embedded in such a strong way that a woman is always understood to be a weaker sex and men are always understood to be the stronger sex. So we'll have to be careful that this paper is not accepting that power remains and will remain to be in the hands of patriarchy, but it opens up the possibility of shift of power. As Foucault has argued, power is not fixed and it is fluid. So we'll have to shift the power by creating that space for having a dialogue from the other's perspective. So the crux of this paper is that other than focusing, rather than focusing on what is the self, we will have to start the conversation from the perspective of the other and change the way power and words are fixed together, integrated together, so that we can make it fluid. And once it becomes fluid, obviously then only we can have the opportunity of changing the meaning it gets associated with. So with these words, I'm ending this lecture. Okay, so now this floor is open for discussions.
Thank you, ma'am, for this brilliant presentation. Of course, we open for questions and answers, so comments.
Okay, so I guess, either I have hurt people's feelings or I have completely supported them.
No, you have done neither, ma'am. You have done neither.
Yeah.
One cannot be completely supportive of somebody and one cannot be completely opposing somebody. I don't know whether it's a comment or an observation, but if you just turn the pages of history and go to the earliest civilization of Egypt, you'll find a woman called Hatshepsut, who was a women queen, but she dressed like a man to the extent of growing a beard. And she ruled the country for 20 years in 15th century BC, something like that, You find her, plaques and, other edicts on the walls of these things. And she was known as Pharaoh. I mean, she was not known as a female queen. She was known as Pharaoh. And to the extent that she used to stand like a man with her legs apart, not joining her legs. So the very posture could, emit maleness, or whatever you call male power or something like that. To that extent, women were sort of demeaned in centuries to come across the world, not in India, not anywhere. And you said word begets power. Yes, did you not see that in Argentina, after 50 years of struggle, they have just said that abortion can become legal because there were words. They were asking for their rights. If you see the first wave of feminism and the second wave of feminism and the third wave of from Rollercroft to other people, they all have words to say. Why can't women do what men do? Equality for all. So word is always very, very important. And just to add to this, how words demean women. So I teach linguistic in B.Ed. Like I'm a teacher of Hindi method master. I've done my master's in literature. So when I went through the grammar of Hindi, it was written by a great Pandit and Shastri. His name is Panini. So Panini gave the grammar to Hindi literature. Now, if you look at the grammar, you will find that Panini has given the words or the nouns such a male and a female, like gender. So anything which is big is male, and anything which is small is a female. So नारियल का पत्ता और तुलसी की पत्ती. So बड़ा वाला कढ़ाई, like पतीला और छोटी वाली पतीली, and बड़ा वाला चमचा and छोटी वाली चमची. And table होता है, कुर्सी होती है, because table is big and kursi is small. So you have made the word so powerful that लड़की बड़े होते होते ये समझती कि जो छोटी है वो मैं हूं. मैं बड़ा नहीं सोच सकती हूँ, जो छोटा है वो मैं हूं. So words do carry a lot of power, and that is why one has to choose the words when you make your next generation ready to face the society and merge into social system. Then you have to ensure that the words that you choose to identify a human being, irrespective of the sex that they have or the gender that they have, has to be more equal. And if we don't do that, then we are again reinforcing the patriarchal hegemony of power into the coming generation. For example, anytime I go to a school and if somebody has to rearrange the bench, it is always the boys. Hey, you come, you rearrange. Why can't girls do it? Well, the only female who has got an Olympic medal in weightlifting is Karnam Malleshwari. She's so powerful. So why do you say that ladkiyan bench nahi utha pati hain? Why do you say? So you want to enforce power through your words, ensuring that women remain petite and they remain, damsels, and they remain weak, and they remain, this thing. They always say, शर्म औरत का जेवर है. अरे भाई, शर्म ना आदमी का भी जेवर होना चाहिए. अगर आपने कुछ गलत किया है तो, और नहीं किया तो किसी का जेवर नहीं होना चाहिए. शर्म हर इंसान को आनी चाहिए गलत करने पर, irrespective of female. So see, words are so powerful. So words are so powerful. So you have to understand that. And I think it's time we all get up, especially the males, to find out that words have power and they do create a power structure. You just excuse me, there is somebody on the door. I'll stay alone. I'll just attend and come back.
Sure. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your notions and perspective. And yes, words do have power, and I guess it is so much embedded in the patriarchal power that, as you have given the example of Panini, that that has been influencing the whole gender society since that time. So I guess the way that was the whole point of discussion, that the way words are embedded with power in so tight, so tightly, we need to loosen it up so that we can change the meaning of words. We can change the way people are understood, the way nouns are associated with them, the way verbs are associated with. So unless strong relationship haven't we given lips as more importance in the form of sexual organs. Hello, I guess my connection was lost. So I was just talking to myself for a few minutes, for last few minutes. So I was having a dialogue, assuming that I was having a monologue, assuming that I am having a dialogue. So basically, this is the whole point that I want to say, that whatever strong relationship we think we have created between words and power, okay, that has to be broken, okay, because until or unless we change the naturalness of its meaning, we cannot change its meaning altogether. So if women have been associated with weakness and men have been associated with power, then until or unless we change such kind of understanding, then we cannot change the way we look at women and men. So emotions, like women are emotional, but men are emotional too. So why do we look at men as someone who cannot show or express his emotions? So until or unless we look at the world in such a binarist way, we cannot change the way we have dialogue with each other. So that is my response.
And if you allow me one more thing, Panini said, दिन होता है और रात होती है. So, जितने बुरे काम होते हैं, चोरी, डकैती, prostitution, गलत, सब रात में होते हैं. So is equal to women is bad. You try to understand how beautifully it is been structured. दिन में पूजा पाठ, हवन, सामग्री और सूर्य को जल चढ़ाना all दिन में होते हैं. और जितने भी बुरे काम होते हैं, शराब पीना, prostitution, चोरी, डकैती, जो कुछ भी होता है, so you have made it female. रात होती है and दिन होता है, and that is why रात is being like associated with women. So that is why Orissa में witchcraft, bhoot, pishaj, all associated to women, because women are so supposed to be feminine in nature. How atrocious is that? And it has gone for ages, gone into our system, and nobody tries to break the this hegemony of मेल फीमेल दैट विमेन्स कैन. मैं हमेशा पूछती हूँ कि भाई खाली पिशाचनी होती हैं, पिशाचनियों में मेल फॉर्म नहीं होता है क्या? क्या चुड़ैली होती है, वो भूतनी होता है क्या? उसका भी मेल फॉर्म होना चाहिए ना? Why only female form has been attributed to all the witchcraft that we have been done? I mean, Orissa and Bengal and other people, women are tied to this thing and disrobed, and they are made to go naked, all because women are associated with witchcraft, because women is associated with night. And see how words create havoc in society and demean an existence of a human being, how bad it is. This is what I'm trying.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for bringing this whole conversation to this platform, because obviously, since you are from a linguistic side and you can understand, you have read these distinctions, which even though we have been using these words, but we haven't been focusing on the use of these words and how embedded they are in a patriarchal structure, that, we never care, like, why we are using hoti hai, hota hai, and why, even sometimes I felt like, English is better than Hindi because it doesn't have that, sort of distinction between the verbs. But then I found that in English, there are capital letters and small letters. So they have created a class distinction, okay? That why everything which is important has to start with a capital letter, and, which is not important has to be in running letters. So, they don't have their own individual identity. So, I'm very glad that you brought this whole discussion to the fore. And I hope that, that will make this position more strong, that we have to loosen up this strong connection between word and power, okay? Because it is not fixed. So thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So Behzad ji, or और कोई discussion? Yeah.
Any more questions? Shabista, do you want to ask something?
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was wonderful listening to you. It was just a thought provoking. Means there are so many things going up in my mind that I'm unable to form it in a proper manner. But I will just try. So as you have said, like you have raised a very pertinent issue that when we are having a dialogue in this context, like the lack of common language, a common ground. So how means like you have suggested a very means radical suggestion is that. So in between, meanwhile, means like okay, means suppose that will happen in near future, but means in this process, what is your suggestion to mitigate that problem when we are having means when we don't have any common language at this platform? So what we should do, like when we are trying to like uh, express ourselves and we don't find that epistemology, that language is there to make the other person understand what we are going through. Means like what a simple statement for them is just a joke or something, but it matters a lot to us. So means, could you highlight your
at least common consciousness among women is very important in this regard. And here so many I can see there are so many experienced delegates sitting here. I would like to hear their opinion as well, but before I do that, I would like to express this common consciousness. Until unless women accept women's experiences and valid expression of their feelings, we cannot change the way women are looked at. Okay, so that could be the first step. At least we'll have to listen to the problems or issues faced by other women. Okay, we don't have to invalidate whatever they are saying. And then if possible, you don't have to be afraid of expressing whatever you are feeling. Okay, sometimes what happens that being a woman, we think that whatever we are feeling doesn't mean anything. It is invalidated by the norms of the society, by the way we are looked at. So I guess we need to change that kind of mentality where we are always trying to judge our expressions by the external standards, and those standards are given by men generally. So I would like to mention here the point of view given by Simone de Beauvoir, where she says that this whole abortion thing was entirely contested by men, because they said that no, women should not have this right to decide whether they should abort the child or not, because once the child is there in your stomach, then obviously it has a life and you cannot take away this life. So obviously they shouldn't be having this right. But on the other hand, Simone de Beauvoir mentioned that these men who were having affair with women, out of wedlock, they forced these women to go for abortion just because they were not prepared to take the burden of having a child. And since they were not married, they didn't have a career, so they forced these women to go illegally for abortion. So you can see that they are not judging their actions from the same standards they have made. And we women are like those women who have to abort the child. They are in this moral dilemma that whether they should kill the kid or not, whether it will be against the law, whether it should be against the society, what will the society say. So they have all the burdens of judging themselves. So my point of view is that you will have to stop doing that. Okay, because even men are not going to. And please, whenever I'm saying men, I have no actually issues with men. I'm just trying to show the patriarchal mindset. Whenever I'm referring to men, I'm not specifically referring to men per se, but about the patriarchal mindset, because even men have to suffer a lot. So because of the patriarchal mindset, so no offense to men. So, but women will have to fight for their own rights, and they will have to share this common consciousness among women at least. So that is my response.
To add to what you're saying, ma'am, and since we are only 14 of us, Behzad, I'm just going to take 2 minutes to understand that what you're saying is absolutely right. Women has to come out and say. And that's why I keep discussing my personal life at a forum, just to make people understand that if today I am all so-called a little bit powerful, it's because I've struggled through. So, ma'am, I'm a UPite and I got married to a Maharashtrian. I'm a Muslim. I got married to a non-Muslim and I came to stay in this house. And my husband is a hardcore fishitarian. He can eat fish morning, evening, early evening, later evening, night. He's from Konkan. So he's a fishitarian. So when I got married and we used to go out, so who would give the order in the hotel? The person who was going at that point of time, I had left my job because he told me no need to work. So I had given, like again, women, na, to chhod diya. So who would pay the bill? So those who pay the bill will also decide what is going to be called for. So he used to go to the hotel and look at pomfret fry, prawns, bombil, and like this. And the steward just, or kuch sir, he used to say, no, I think that is enough. And I'm from Uttar Pradesh. I'm a hardcore muttonarian. Unless you eat mutton, for me, non-vegetarian does not stand still. So,
Yes.
pehle 2-4 baar, 6 baar, and like I used to always feel कि यार मेरा mutton नहीं है table पे, it is not there. So what to do? After 6 months, once I remember we went to Powai here. There's a restaurant called Zafran. It's a Afghani restaurant, Mughal. There he ordered fish, pomfret. Yeah. And the moment the steward said, anything else, sir? I said, yes, 1 mutton Rogan Josh and 1 Hyderabadi biryani. So my husband looked at me and he said, and who's going to eat that? I said, I am going to eat. And he said, jo itna mangaya? I said, we'll get it parcel and you eat tomorrow. I cannot eat, this type of fish every time in my life. Please give me a break. So he got so angry, so wild, did not speak to me for months on end, saying that you don't know how to. But then the next time when I went to the restaurant, after ordering his fish, he started looking at me. I said, same, mutton Rogan Josh, 1 Hyderabadi biryani. And after that, it became mandatory for him to ask me as to what is my choice of food. I mean, come on, ma'am. I have struggled in my life. Have I to beg for a bowl of biryani or 4 botis of mutton in my life? What is my existence in life if I cannot even spell out the word that I want to eat non-veg of my choice? You understand. And after that, he understood that I come from a different background. So my choices can be different. Otherwise, he was being born and brought up in an atmosphere where my mother-in-law used to eat whatever my father-in-law used to bring. So there was no question of women choices, So you have to at times use your word. And I still remember I was so firm saying, I'm going to eat it. And he said, ye jo maine itna manga, I said, it will get packed and tomorrow you will eat it at home or we will give it to our maid. I'm not going to eat. I need my, something like that. So yes, you need to assert yourself. And after that, things started falling in place. He started understanding that women also have a space. They also have choices and we must give that respect for that. It's just a question of asking for one dish, but it does have a long meaning and long time it goes. And probably that's why my daughter is more a tomboy than this thing, because we then brought her up into an atmosphere where she was free. And like my boys, she was also given the same choice and same this thing. If battamizi is a battamizi, it's both for men and women. If staying out after 12 is forbidden for daughter, it is forbidden for son also. Same. So then when you have this, then the patriarchy loosens up and it gives chance for women to have more equal power relationship then, and they go in society with a more balanced mindset, and then they have, I would say, a very balanced life. That is
I am like,
Thank you so much.
So Shabista, I guess, you have got the right answer that what is the way out. Okay. So
Thank you,
have
ma'am.
a living example of what you should be doing.
Thank you so much for
Thank you, Sabia ma'am.
All right. So if we don't have any more questions, we can conclude here.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.